The now terrorist-designated group TPLF has been at the helm of the entire social, political, economic and intelligence landscape of the Ethiopian nation for over 2 decades and a half. With that, the group has been an absolute authority in every aspect of life, mover and shaker of the socio-political system, and an uncontested hegemonic supremacy, including the untouchable status and power of being the sole kingmaker of regional states it itself drew along the ethnic lines across the country. Interestingly, TPLF even made regional states to be officially called Kelil, which loosely translates to something like restricted, barricaded in Amharic, the working language of the government. Unbeknownst to many, perhaps, the other more interesting and so bewildering fact was that mapping of regions in Ethiopia across ethnic lines remained with a striking parallel to the one fascist Italy drew for Ethiopia during the Korean War. The latter's intent in that regard must be a no-brainer. To colonize, one must first divide, sow hatred, and induce rivalry among the people one intends to subjugate. But Italy was a foreign power led by a fascist government whose mission was to reign over a foreign colony. With that, however ill the intentions were, it may perhaps be justified, at least by the colonizer. But this was supposedly by an Ethiopian government, or it claimed to be one, while still resorting to division, sowing of hatred and inducing rivalry among its own people. That hardly, if at all, could have been justified, and the sickening misery it brought about on the people showed the entire world how wrong it was. That insane philosophy, if it deserves to be called one, lingered for several years, nonetheless, seemingly normal from the outside, but with deep-rooted ethnic tensions simmering from the inside, finally exposing a horribly ugly face in a full sordid display of barbarism over 2 decades later. For the propagators of such tried and awfully failed system, that is perhaps what it was meant to be from the outset, after all. But for the countless innocent victims that were subjugated to despicable atrocities, it ended up being a generational curse. That is, to all the people of the country, including the people the group claimed to be fighting for. The bitter anomaly in all that, however, was that the poor people of Tigray never were able to see the fruits of the struggle that they sacrificed the lives of tens of thousands of their children, as had been preached to them for decades. The lives of the vast majority of Tigrayans were as miserable as the rest of the country, in some cases even more so than the others. Sadly, it all seemed to end in total vain. The tight political grip it formulated, the enormous wealth it amassed, the organizational network it established, the military muscle it ballooned, the security and its meticulously weaved web of intelligence and espionage enabled the group to remain an uncontested, unquestioned, and, albeit universally dreaded, an extremely fearsome entity in a country of over 100 million people for 26 years. It grew into a massive Orwellian police state no one dared to even look at with 2 eyes. That kept on until it could no more be. Eventually, the group was finally deposed from the central government, first by popular revolt, then, more instrumentally, by a sophisticated political maneuver of a superior political wit that many still reminisce about as not only shockingly unexpected, but also, in a way, even miraculous. As a result, the group wrangled its way, or perhaps it was allowed to move back to Tigray, the base it had for so long forgotten about, but was the last bastion of hope for the continuation of its dissipating breath of survival. The sad story, though, was that the group managed to resettle in Tigray with all its might in wealth, organizational network, military muscle, and the intricate web of security and intelligence intact. The only difference was that all those capacities that had been effectively deployed to rule 100 million multilingual, multicultural people with iron fist were squeezed to be deployed on just 6 million people of a single language and culture. Effectively, the group that was enormously oversized in every aspect turned into a supernova too dense for 6 million people to escape from. With its immense power and security apparatus, it was all the more easy to install insurmountable fear among the people. This time, for the group, the platform of promulgating dictatorial fear and inducing ideological grip in at least 10 major languages was reduced to just one language, the mother tongue of the clique, and with 94% less people to brutally control, making it ever so simplified to brainwash the masses, not to mention eavesdropping even their individual whispers. The civilized world has always been baffled to fathom why the people of North Korea show seemingly absolute and unwavering loyalty to the Communist Party and the leader they call Supreme. However incomprehensible and at times even laughable the blind obedience of the people of North Korea to the party and the Supreme Leader may look, to understand the real reason behind that seemingly absurd subservience, it takes to be a North Korean. Otherwise, it would turn out to be merely a judgment. By the same token, however, incomprehensible and at times even bizarre the blind obedience of the people in Tigray to Communist TPLF may look, seemingly that is, to understand the real reason behind that inexplicable subservience, it takes to be a Tigrayan. Otherwise, it may be, just maybe, merely judgment. The world is not threatened by evil people, but by those who allow evil to take place, says Albert Einstein. How relieving it would have been if he also had figured out why those who allow evil to take place do so. Is it because they don't mind, or they don't care, or, more likely, too frightened by the evil's terrifying monstrosity to even dare? Maybe it takes to live in a squeeze under the tentacles of the Leviathan to know for sure. Leviathan is a demon of darkness and chaos and leader of hell, referred in the Bible. Leviathan as a gatekeeper, it's known as the Hell Mouth, where the mighty demon's mouth is said to represent the gates of hell itself. He is also the representation of sin and envy. In his book, The Leviathan, the renowned 17th century political philosopher Thomas Hobbes says, absolute power of the ruler was ultimately justified by the consent of the governed, who agreed in a hypothetical social contract to obey the sovereign in all matters in exchange for the guarantee of peace. What would he have said if he lived in this century and witnessed the miseries of the Tigrayan and the North Korean people under an absolute hegemony of merciless dictatorship by communist cliques? Is that they actually consented to misery, or they are squeezed to consent?